I'm Alexa from the Cupcake Bar, and I'm here today to teach you how to make delicious royal icing so that you can ice and decorate some beautiful cookies. Let's get started and talk about the supplies that you will need to make your icing. So first up, we'll need our sugar. That's going to be the base of our royal icing. We'll need about 4 cups of powdered sugar. You'll also need about 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. This will help keep your icing nice and thick and stiff. And so you can also use egg whites if you'd like, but we find that meringue powder tends to hold up well. You'll also, if you want to do some colored icing, you will want to grab some gel-based dye. And then we'll need a little bit of warm water to mix into our icing today. So the warm water will help things mix up a little bit nicer and more evenly than if we were to use cold or room temperature water. So that's it from your kit. And then from your kitchen, you're going to want to grab a few supplies as well. First, we have a large mixing bowl that we're going to be making our icing in. You're also going to want to grab something to stir with. So whether that's a whisk or a hand mixer, I'm going to be using a whisk today, but I'll talk about how to change things up if you use a hand mixer. We'll need a tablespoon measuring spoon to measure our water as we pour it into our mixture. And then some cling wrap might be helpful if you're going to be leaving your icing for a little bit because it helps keep it nice and moist and prevents it from drying out. Once we have our icing made, then we will fill our piping bags with the icing and be ready to decorate our cookies. And we'll talk more about that at the end of our video today. Once we have all of our ingredients ready to go, it's time to start mixing our icing. So first up, we're going to take our 4 cups of powdered sugar and we're going to add it to our mixing bowl, just right in there, just like that. Then we're going to add in our 3 tablespoons of meringue powder. So we have all of our dry ingredients first, and we're going to want to incorporate those using our whisk or our hand mixer. I recommend using a whisk or a spoon at this step, just to keep things a little bit cleaner. All right, so I'm going to mix those 2 dry ingredients together so that they are nice and incorporated. Great. And once I have that ready to go, then it's time to add the liquid. So I'm going to use my tablespoon measure, and I'm going to add 5 tablespoons of warm water. Now, royal icing can be a little bit tricky sometimes, and so you might find that you would need to add a little bit more icing or a little bit more water as we go. So there's 3, 4, and 5. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my whisk to just stir that together. And I'll start to see it form nice, beautiful icing at the bottom of the bowl. Now, if you're using a hand mixer, what I would recommend doing is starting on low speed so you can control the rate of mixture. And we're going to incorporate this, and you'll start to see nice, beautiful icing form at the bottom of your bowl. You'll notice it will start to thicken up as you mix. And what we're going for today for our cookie decorating is a nice medium consistency of icing. And so if you're noticing, like me, that your icing is a little bit dry, that's your cue to add more water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause my mixing here for a second, and I'm going to go back to my warm water and add an extra tablespoon and mix it in. When it comes to royal icing, a little bit of water goes a long way. So you're going to want to add any additional water slowly and continue mixing. Just like that. My mixture is still a little bit thick, which tells me I need to add a little bit more water. So I'm going to go back to my glass here and add 1 more tablespoon. Now, depending on your sugar and depending on whether or not you had exactly 4 cups or maybe a little more, a little less, you may not need to add these extra tablespoons. But what we like to do is we like to start with less water and then always add more, because you can always add more water a lot easier than you can take away water. All right, so I'll stir this up, and what I'm noticing is that that extra water is really helping that icing incorporate. And it's looking like most of the dry sugar has been absorbed, but it's still pretty thick. Now, if I were to be making a gingerbread house, or if I were to be using icing to stick 2 cookies together, this would be a great consistency. So I'll show you guys up close what that looks like. This is a really thick royal icing consistency. And we want to make ours a little bit thinner. So we're going to add just a tad more water. I'm still seeing some lumps and bumps in there, so that tells me we're almost there, but not quite. So I'm going to add maybe just a half a tablespoon more. And we'll see how that does. The ultimate goal with our medium consistency royal icing is for soft peaks to form. So what that means is whenever I lift up my spoon or my spatula, the icing should make a little peak and fall softly or fall slowly. And I think we're almost there. Now, if you're using a hand mixer to mix your icing, you might notice that there are some air bubbles forming. And we want to be very careful about that because the more air that touches the icing, the quicker it will harden. So if you're noticing air bubbles forming in your icing, you may want to tap your bowl on the table just to kind of gently pop those bubbles and keep it moist for longer. Okay, I think we're almost there. Let me do my little test and see if we've got soft peaks. Let's see. Yes, that looks good. So when I use my whisk to hold it up, it's just very softly falling, and that tells me it's the right consistency for my icing. Now, if I wanted to add some food coloring and make it a colorful icing, now would be a great time to do that. We recommend using a gel-based food coloring. We think it holds up a little bit nicer. Just like that. And anytime we are working with royal icing, again, we want to reduce the amount of time it's exposed to air because that's when it will harden. So if you've got some other things to do, you may want to grab some cling wrap and you may want to unwrap it and place it directly on top of the icing in the bowl so that it's touching, and that will help keep it fresh for longer. So you can see my icing right here, the cling wrap is directly touching it, and that will keep it from drying out as you continue to work with it. So once we are making our icing and we finish that step, we're ready to transfer it into our piping bags. So for that, you'll need your metal piping tip, and you'll also need your piping bag. And what we can do is just cut the end off the tip of the bag. We insert the metal piping tip into the bottom so that the edge is exposed, and then we can use a spoon or we can use a spatula to fill it to pipe onto our cookies. Another option would be to use a spatula just to scoop the icing and spread it directly onto the cookies. That works great. And that's it. That's all it takes to make royal icing. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Alexa at the Cupcake Bar, and we hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful time making delicious cookies. Thank you. Bye-bye.